Today's episode is presented by Early Bird. Early Bird is the simplest way for parents, families, and friends to collectively invest in a child's financial future, starting at the earliest age. Early Bird's mobile app empowers parents and families to start saving for their child's financial future in a matter of minutes, while activating a child's broader community to gift contributions on, birthdays, holidays, any occasion. Realistically, as a parent and somebody who has had to deal with having a family-funded child issue, it's never too early to start saving. And realistically, this is a great idea because you can, instead of saying, oh, well, here's $5 in cash in your birthday card, little Johnny, you can actually put the money away and invest it. And maybe when it's time for them to go to college or to go out and get out on their own if they're not going to go to college, or if you need bail money, I don't know how your kid's going to turn out. The point is, it's never too early to start developing financial literacy. I wish somebody would have taken me off to the side when I was a young parent and said, put away money now for your kid's future. You won't regret it. We're teaming up with Early Bird to give our listeners a free $15 investment to gift to a child you love. Simply go to partners.getearlybird.io/podcast, or to make it easier, click the link in the show notes, download the app, set up your account today. Early Bird. Build the nest and invest in the children you love. The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. Today's episode is going to be more of the usual me ranting and raving and complaining about whatever happens to be stuck in my craw at the moment. But before I really get into that, I wanted to start with something that, if you have been listening to the show for any kind of extended amount of time, if you've heard more than 2 episodes, you've probably heard this come up at least in passing. But I wanted to take a second to address a couple little messages I've gotten through social media from a couple people that don't seem to get how this works here and how I work. My general premise is, as long as you're not hurting or bothering anybody else with your life choices, they're your life choices. I am a firm believer in the philosophy of I don't give a fuck. It is one of my core tenets. As long as whatever issue comes up that you have a choice to make, if you're not hurting anybody else and you're not bothering me, I don't give a fuck. You do you. As long as you're a decent person or you're a good human being, that's what I'm going to judge you on. I'm going to judge you on how you treat me and how you treat other people. And that's it. I don't care about what your orientation is. I don't give a shit how you choose to self-identify. Even though I do think there's a difference between identity and actual biology, because there is. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but the simple fact of the matter is we are a binary biological species. There is a male and a female. It's not really a matter of debate. It's not a spectrum. You have a Y chromosome and an X chromosome, or you have 2 X chromosomes. That's pretty much it. Or sometimes you get a bonus chromosome and then you're, special and you probably have a family wreath instead of a family tree. But biologically, that's how it works. That's the science behind it. That's how the species propagates itself. But that also doesn't define who you are as a human being, and I acknowledge that fact too. Your identity, yes, there can be a whole spectrum of that, but biologically, it's AB. That's all it is. But again, I don't give a fuck. Call yourself whatever you want. Whatever feels right to you, whatever makes you happy, whatever adds value and worth to your life, and as far as satisfying how you feel about things, is fine by me. I don't give a fuck. You can identify as a friggin' Apache attack chopper for all I care. But ultimately, at the core of how I feel about things is I don't want to deny people their happiness or their worth, as long as it's not inflicting harm on themselves or others. Rock and roll, go for broke. The problem now, this kind of is a segue into what I wanted to address real briefly here, and I've got people who apparently heard me say something that they really liked and they really agreed with and they're like completely on board with, and then either in the same episode or shortly thereafter, they hear me say something that for whatever reason they don't agree with, and they seem to think that somehow my two stances on certain things cannot live in the same person because one comment was more quote-unquote liberal leaning and the other was more conservative. And I've tried to explain this to people before. I'm going to do it again. It ties back into the whole tenet of I don't give a fuck. Live your life. If you have a problem with that, this is not the show for you to be listening to. When it comes to things like governments, I am more conservative. I am not a fan of big government. I do not believe in big spending. I do not believe in corporate welfare. I do not believe that there should be everything coming from one centralized governmental source because A, these assholes have proven they're incompetent and incapable of running anything efficiently or effectively, and B, I don't think people should be dependent on something like government to be taking care of everything in their lives, because when you put that much of your control of your life into one source, one little bit of corruption is all it takes to fucking ruin it. And dependency is just another form of slavery in my mind, where if you are completely dependent on someone else to support your life and to keep your life functioning and working, and you are not your own person at that point. You are whatever they want you to be. And I do not endorse that in any way, shape, or form. But on the other side of that coin, since I have people who hear me say these things and they're like, oh, well, he must be super conservative, and then I say something about letting people be who they want to be and love who they want to love and mind your fucking business, and those guys get bent out of shape with me. So I really, personally, I don't see any conflict in my stance and in my beliefs. I think it's probably a lot more reasonable to say you should accept people for who they are and for what they do rather than trying to hold them to your expectations and thinking everyone has to apply themselves to standards that come from your religious beliefs or your political beliefs or your upbringing is just kind of stupid and selfish, as long as it falls within the tenets of not causing any harm, not hurting anybody. If they're not hurting you, if what they're doing is not directly impacting your lives, mind your fucking business. Move on. Get over your fucking self. You're not that important, I promise you. The world does not wait with bated breath for some ignorant son of a bitch to come out and tell the rest of the planet what they're doing wrong because it doesn't conform to what you believe. And I am not without a sense of irony. The fact that I'm sitting here telling everybody to be more accepting because that's what I happen to believe. But I honestly, from a purely objective standpoint, just think that is fair. I don't think fair is a concept that any religious group or any particular organization would argue with. Fair and just is, by definition, equal treatment for everyone, regardless of factors. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say it's fair for murderers to get, oh, well, that's what I believe is right. No, that's causing harm and fucking with somebody else's life. If you really want to end somebody's life, if that's some desire you have, the only life you have a right to end is your fucking own. And if you're the kind of person that's constantly thinking about hurting other people, I completely encourage you to exercise that option. If you're not contributing, if you're not useful, if you're not helpful, go fuck yourself. So if you're kind of wondering, we're going to give you the Cliff Notes version of where I stand on a few things that people have felt the need to try and tell me I'm wrong one way or the other. Real quick, real short. Do I support the LGBTQIA, I don't know if they've added any more letters to it, plus community? Yes, I do. It's not your problem. It's none of your business. You don't like those people, go fuck yourself. That's your problem. Do I unilaterally back the blue? No, I do not. Do I think all cops are bastards? No, I do not. Cops are people just like anybody else. They're doing an extremely high-pressure job, high-stress job. They don't get nearly the respect that should go along with doing a job where you may die as part of your job description. Do I think all the cops are good? No. I have personally dealt with some shitty, corrupt, crooked-ass cops. I think most cops, though, I know I don't deal with that on the same level as a lot of other people because I am a middle-aged white guy, and I acknowledge that in some cases that can be a deciding factor. There are bad guys out there wearing badges, but you know what? There's a whole lot of good guys out there wearing badges too, and they're putting their lives on the line trying to keep people in a position where they can be safe to bitch about the bad ones, where they can have that opinion. So here's the thing. You don't hear about those cops. Very rarely do you hear a news article about a police officer going out and doing something way above and beyond the call of duty because he's a decent guy. That doesn't get coverage. There's a lot of those guys out there. And I'm not going to necessarily just say, oh, well, if he would have complied, he'd still be alive. But in a lot of circumstances, with a lot of things that are going on these days, people are actively going after situations where they could get fucked up because they think social media is going to somehow vindicate them. Some people may be willing to be martyrs. Some people think that cell phone camera is going to keep them safe from their own shitty actions. Being a prick on camera trying to draw out a cop or provoke a cop does not make you a martyr or a social justice warrior or anything else. If you're being a prick and you're trying to record the natural human reaction of the officer of you being a shithead, you're still being a shithead. I'm not going to apologize for feeling that way. You want to prove that there's rotten cops out there and you catch a rotten cop doing something unprovoked and out of line, good. More power to you. Those guys do not need to be wearing badges. They do not need to be out there abusing their authority and their power. That doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and say every single one of them is bad and they all need to go, because that's not the case. I have friends that are police officers. They are good people. They don't go out there randomly pulling over people based on what they look like. They pull over people that are doing things illegal. They do not go out there and say, oh, well, here's a black guy in the car. I'm going to drag him out because he's black. They say, okay, I'm going to pull this individual over and I'm going to try and do my job, and how I react to them is going to be based on how they react to me, because they're decent human beings. You're never going to hear about these guys on the news, though. They're never going to get a story talking about how they donated a whole shitload of stuff to Toys for Tots, even though they work on a civil servant salary, which is not a lot of money. So, no, I'm not going to go out there and start screaming all cops are bastards and any of this other dumb shit that people are sitting there. And don't bother trying to come at me with your, well, if you say this, you have to believe that, because no, I fucking don't. That's just the long and the short of it. I judge people based on their actions. I judge individuals based on being individuals. And just to put it out there, I'm all for ending qualified immunity as long as it's done fairly. You want to take qualified immunity away from the cops, which I think to a certain degree is a perfectly reasonable thing. Qualified immunity has allowed... The concept was good. The implementation and the practice is bad. But if you're going to take qualified immunity away from the cops, take it away from the politicians, the judges, the lawyers, everybody. So that way, if a judge fucks up, he's just as liable for that fuck up as the cops. I don't think anyone should have qualified immunity. It's not... The concept of mistakes happen and you shouldn't be able to get sued for a mistake or an accident. I like the concept, but the application has gotten way out of fucking hand. So you want to take qualified immunity away from the officers, take it away from the judges, take it away from the lawyers, take it away from the politicians that write the laws that create these situations in the first place. Yeah, that's just what it is. You want to do something, you have to be fair about it. You can't... There's a difference between trying to seek justice and trying to seek revenge. And if you don't understand the difference, if you don't get the concept, there is a difference between justice and punitive. Difference between punishment and fair. It's real basic concepts. Get a dictionary if it confuses you. The definitions don't even line up. And also, I've said this more times than I can remember at this point, I really don't understand why people think their feelings being hurt is any sort of significant argument against anything. Oh, boo-hoo, you're offended. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your butt hurt, your feelings, you're in your feels, whatever you want to say to try and justify. Your stance is not justified by your feelings at all. Your feelings are a strictly personal thing. It is not society's responsibility to take care of your feelings. It is not other people's responsibility to take care of your feelings. It is part of being an adult. Learn to deal with your fucking problems. Go seek counseling. Go get help. I've said it many times. I am a supporter of mental health. I believe that talking to people and getting things straightened out and learning how to cope and deal with things should be the norm. We should all be trying to do it. And if you need the help, you need to be able to go get it. But on the other hand, don't expect society to pussyfoot around you and try and shelter you and protect you and take care of your poor little sensitive feels. That's not how it fucking works. It's really not. That's not how the real world works. That's not how the natural world works. I got a lot of these, bean sprout, granola eating motherfuckers that are sitting there saying, oh, well, we need to save the planet and our spirit is out of alignment, and in the natural order of things, we need to do this and we need to do that. And everything they're saying defies any example you will find in the natural world of how the world works. Because it's not about preservation. It's not about endurance of the species or anything else. And don't get me wrong, I really think we need to be better stewards of the planet and leave a place that's not a complete festering shithole to the future. So anyway, that's kind of the summary, that's the Cliff Notes version of dealing with me. If you've been listening to the show at all in the past and you haven't figured these things out yet, what the fuck? Seriously. Go back, re-listen to the episodes, fresh eyes it, do what you gotta do. It's not all just about bitching about other people, but by and wide, yes, that's what it's about. It's about bitching about other people. So stop being dumb fucks. And that being said, we're going to take a quick little break here, and we'll be back in a minute so I can talk about the other thing that's really been stuck in my craw the last few days.
Looking for a new podcast? Check out the Infectious Groove Podcast. My name is Russ, and I host the show along with Michelle and Kyle. Every Monday, the three of us bring you music news and tell you our jammy jams, so you'll always have new music to check out. The Infectious Groove Podcast discusses music from nearly every decade and genre while openly displaying our passion for music you need to hear. On top of that, we have a thought-provoking main topic of discussion every week to get you thinking, discussing, and sharing music. We also include interviews with the music stars of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms. Subscribe and listen to the Infectious Groove Podcast on your favorite podcast platform today.
Okay, so welcome back. Thanks for listening to that. Anyway, so the other thing I want to talk about real briefly, and this is going to be another shorter side episode, something's been going on recently, and it's got me thinking about basically shitty people. And I'm going to kind of talk about this, and at this point I operate under the assumption that about 85% of the people who actually listen to this show, anything resembling a regular basis, are other podcast hosts, because it just seems to be the way it works. And so, thanks for listening if you're still listening at this point. The thing that I wanted to talk about, though, is something that I've noticed kind of going on, and it's not exclusive to the podcast world. Anytime somebody is out there creating something, there's going to be critics, there's going to be detractors, and unfortunately, a lot of people these days get behind their keyboards and they get these big keyboard muscles and they want to go online and talk shit. And that's nothing new. Online shit talking has been a rite of passage for an entire generation. It's, you post something online, someone's going to talk shit about you, you're going to talk shit about someone else, whatever. But ultimately, it's not a new thing. It's not something new. But I've been seeing it happen a lot more with the uptick in everyone's social media activities over the last year and some change, due to the panorama and all this other shit that's been going on. And we're spending more time than ever in front of screens and dealing with this online bullshit. And a lot of people have gotten real comfortable with being shitheads because nobody's there to punch them in the mouth for talking shit. And it shows. And a lot of these people, if they tried pulling... First off, I'm willing to bet 95% of the people I'm thinking of right now are cowards when it comes to real life. They are the kind of shitty, horrible people that will badmouth somebody behind their back, and as soon as they're around, it's, oh, hey, how you doing? Great to see you, blah, 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 blah. Because they're afraid. Because they don't have the stones to speak up and voice what they actually feel about somebody. A bunch of two-faced, petty assholes. And the thing I'm kind of, that's got me tripping about this, or however you want to look at it, is I've noticed a couple of other programs that I happen to follow have been getting some, like, shitty reviews. And by and wide, it's not like a valid, useful critique. It's just petty, stupid shit. And it's taken a couple of forms. Like, a lot of people say that as a podcaster, you haven't really made it till you've gotten your first 1-star review, because that means enough people listen to you that you piss somebody off that much where they're going to take the time to leave a shit review on your show, instead of just doing the adult thing and going, well, don't like that, time to move on. And honestly, just being me and being how I am about things, and my general approach to this little program I've set up as my own version of therapy, I'm really shocked that I have yet to receive a 1-star review. So obviously not enough people are listening to the show. So tell a friend, tell 10 friends, tell as many people as you can. You know, if you're into graffiti, go tag some IHadToSayIt.coms up there for me, all right? But the thing is, so like I said, I haven't had this happen to me yet. I haven't received a 1-star review. And so I haven't gotten a chance to lay into somebody for being a cowardly, cravenly keyboard warrior piece of shit. But a lot of programs that I've interacted with the hosts in one form or another through social media or talking, over the internet, however, have gotten, these, like, shit reviews. And it's never anything constructive. It's never like, oh, well, this is why I have a problem with the show. It always is some, like, half-baked, weak-ass version of a personal attack on people. And it's either I don't agree with their opinions, or they don't talk well, or I don't like their voice. And it's like, motherfucker, are you really so vested in this show that you apparently are discontent with that you needed to take the time and the energy to go write a 1-star review so you could tell the world how butthurt you are that whatever imaginary bar in your head was not met by this program? And by and wide, in the indie podcaster community, no, we're not making money doing this shit. This is something we do for ourselves. We do for fun. We do because we want to share things we're passionate about with other people who are into the same shit. And I mean, me personally, it would not make my day change one frickin' iota to get a 1-star review or to get any kind of negative comments posted on any of my shows, because frankly, I don't give a nickel-plated fuck if people like me or not. But I know a lot of people that put way more effort into their shows than I do. I mean, I get angry and record my rants and tears and the things I think, and occasionally I try and do something useful and constructive or something that will be helpful to people. And occasionally people listen. As often as not, they don't. I mean, I bear no illusions about how much traffic and how much traction I actually get doing this. But the thing that really burns my ass is these people who spend a lot of their own personal time, and they are investing of themselves in these programs, and it shows because they do actual research, and I've seen it more commonly in the communities of programs that can't be done off the cuff. It's not a banter, related podcast. It's not just somebody babbling into a microphone like me. It's people that go out and they want to present topics that they are passionate about, things they enjoy, and things they do a lot of work to be able to speak knowledgeably and well about the things they're talking about. They write out scripts. They have research. They go out and dig into cases for, like, true crime stories where they go out and do all this investigating and running down sources and citing their sources and all this other work that they pour into this stuff like it's a labor of love, because it's a passion project. It is literally something they're doing for the simple joy of doing it. They're not obligated to anybody. They don't owe anybody shit. I mean, yeah, granted, some of us have networks and sponsors, and we do have obligations that we sometimes take upon ourselves in the name of sponsorship. And that being said, if anybody wants to sponsor I Had to Say It, please feel free to reach out to me. I definitely need a couple equipment upgrades. I could use some microphones and maybe a couple of sets of headphones in case I ever decide to start doing some live interview type stuff or recording with guests. I'd love to get a portable podcast recorder. That would be fantastic too, but unfortunately it's not in my budget at the moment. So if you would like to sponsor the show, or if you happen to produce any fine single malt scotches and you want to sponsor the show, I'll be more than happy to drink them and endorse the hell out of them every time I do one of these. But that being said, with the the desperate grasping for validation and financial compensation for what is essentially just my little hobby, so I don't understand why it is you could listen to, and in particular, the ones I really don't get are, it's like the people that shit on individual episodes. Like, oh, I love this one. It was great. Oh, this one was fantastic. Oh my God, you're a goddamn snowflake. Well, which is it? You love the work these people are doing, or all of a sudden they said something that you don't agree with and you have to go and shit on their Sunday. And how sad and lonely are you? You're not creating anything. I don't see you putting anything out there. All you can do is bitch and judge and be an obnoxious asshole. Why do people find validation in this kind of bullshit? Why is it that people will take somebody else's passion and their art and the things they do for the simple joy of it and try and tear it down? I mean, there's petty jealousy, I suppose, could be part of it. And God forbid you go into a situation thinking you have something figured out, and all of a sudden you find out that the people you're listening to and you started investing of yourself, maybe this is part of it. Maybe it's because people get invested in programs and they start thinking they know the people behind the microphone, and all of a sudden they say or do something that doesn't fit this completely unrealistic mental image you've developed of the individual. And so now you're bent out of shape. You're butthurt. You're, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you don't exactly exist the way my mind thinks you should. And they go out and they just write. Either by far the worst are the ones where it's like 1 star, no reason, no logic, no explanation, no commentary, just shitty review. And at least that way, you're pretty much guaranteeing nothing's going to get changed, nothing's going to get fixed. Nobody knows why you're being a piece of shit, but you are. And then you get the ones that it's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're such a whatever. You're such an insensitive prick. You're such a, closeted racist. You're such a this. You're such a that. Whatever it is that you're all bent out of shape about, whatever decision you have made about the individual that you're listening to, that you really have no basis for other than the fact that you thought they were one way and apparently you were fucking wrong. Now, that's not on them. It's really not fair to try and hold someone accountable for not living up to your imagined standards, unless you're in that very slim percentage of people who actually personally know the person. You really got no grounds to assume they are any way based on your feelings about things. Thinking that someone is going to be a certain way because you like something they were talking about, I mean, that doesn't, just because you were interested or into something that they were saying, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a certain way or they're going to fit your idea of what a person should be like. So you got to look at things with this, grain of salt and a little bit of a weather eye. And realistically, if you're that pissed off at a show, if you're that upset with a movie or a video or a whatever, you have a couple of options that are way better than leaving a shitty review and fucking up their metrics and decreasing the traffic to their site because you're petty and you don't like it. I mean, besides the fact that that's basically trying to force your tastes and your opinions on someone else, which, if you haven't figured out by now, I completely oppose that just on general principle. What is right for you is not necessarily right for any fucking body else, and you've got no call to enforce your beliefs, your will, or your feelings on someone else. Period. The end. But by trying to ruin the metrics and mess the system up, and because you're not a fan of a program or you're not a fan of something they said, or they somehow broke your opinion of what they should be. They're not meeting the standard that you are trying to hold them to or you are developing for them. It's actually much less work just to fucking move on. And if you post a review where it's like, I've listened to 9 episodes of your show and you're a fucking idiot in every one of them, blah, 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 blah. Why did you stick around that long? You got nothing better to do with your time? You got nothing better to be, nothing better to feel, nothing better to do than sit around and be a miserable fucking prick to another human being? Move on. Get a fucking life, you tool bag. I mean, for fuck's sakes, it takes zero effort not to be a piece of shit. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, because apparently for some people it takes a whole lot of fucking effort not to be a piece of shit, because they're incapable of doing it. It must be fucking hard to keep your mouth shut and just move on. I mean, everybody is so convinced that their opinion holds so much goddamn value to other people that they have to force it down everyone else's throats. It's fucking sickening. And realistically, I assume if you've made it this long and listening to me bitch and moan and whine and complain, you're not one of those people. I really honestly hope and believe that's the case for anyone who takes the time out of their day to listen to me talk for a half hour or however long these episodes go. And I hope you're better than that. I hope you try and make the world a better place instead of try and build something, try and create something. Stop tearing shit down. And I really think if you're listening to me, and especially if you've made it this far into an episode, you're not one of those people, and good on you. Be good to each other, take care of each other, be better, do better. We all need to. And for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you liked what you heard, leave a review, give us a follow, give me some feedback. And if you didn't like what you heard, leave a review, give me a follow, give me some feedback. I'll try and fix it. Check us out on all the social media platforms at I Had to Say It Podcast is the trigger for all that stuff, for the search term. And if you want, check out the website, www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to people that have been involved with the program, things I've talked about. There are some links available for some merch that we're working on, and there are ways to contact us there as well. And thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.